Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Super Sunday here on Apex Racing TV and part 2 of the Weekend Warriors, that being the Spec Racer Fords. My name is Ron Mullins. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hallway of our old friend Samuli Kumo. Today we're at the ever-historic Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, ready for a race that is going to be tense. Now in these SRFs, a draft is just so unbelievably important in deciding how well you do in these races. So with a very disproportionately long straightaway here on this track, what kind of game of high-speed leapfrog do you expect to see today here, Charles?
Oh, it's going to be a fun race. There's a couple, obviously, the start-finish straight in that run into turn 1, and then the run down out of turn 1 down to turn 2 it's going to be a draft fest there. It's a great place to try and make an overtake going into turn 2. The rest of the track is very technical, though. It's very tight, twisty, lots of elevation changes. So you're going to have your work cut out for you if you're driving this car and trying to get really, really good lap times out. It's a very difficult track to master. I don't know, to me, it feels like a very European feel, very similar to what we just kind of experienced with IMLA and the Formula Fords. Except a couple longer straights, but otherwise should be a really interesting race. Looking forward to it, and let's have some fun with it.
And I'm actually just looking through the schedule that we've had so far this season. A very good schedule, it must be said. We had the Summit Point to kick the season off all the way back on March the 17th. Went to Zandvoort, the Nordschleife, New Hampshire on the Roval there. We went to VIR, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Rudskogen, Belle Isle, Phoenix, Mid-Ohio here today. Then we're going to be heading down under to Winton and then Watkins Glen to round off the season on June the 2nd. And Mid-Ohio is the only track on that schedule that I've actually visited in real life. I went there back in the summer of 2021. It's a wonderful circuit that the drivers are going to tackle. They're tackling it here in this qualifying session that we're in right now. A couple minutes in, so I have a long ways left to go here. So a whole lot of leapfrogging that could go on between now and the end of this. 40 cars, I believe. It may be a little bit more, maybe a little bit less than that. I'll fact check myself real quick to see exactly how many. 41. To be a bit more precise, 41 Spec Racer Fords around this track, which isn't the longest in the world, only 2.25 miles. So 41 cars. It is going to be very, very easy to find a very powerful slipstream in this qualifying session, which is, as we point out, it's going to be huge in the race, and it's going to be huge in this qualifying session as well.
Yeah, for sure. You can find a good drafting partner And if you work kind of, prep it and get a little teamwork going with a couple of the other drivers, you can give each other, a helping hand and kind of swap that draft back and forth to try and get the best time for both of you. But, otherwise you may get caught up behind a much slower car. So you have to be very aware of where each car is on track and what driver is in it, and plan accordingly in order to set the optimum time for your qualifying.
Currently, our provisional pole sitter seems to be Marco Pinero. Still have a whole lot of time left to go, about 6 minutes left to go in this 20-minute long qualifying session. But Pinero's been running up towards the front in a whole lot of these races, that number 16 car. It's a very unusual occasion if we don't see the Italian up towards the very north end of the field. Will the case be the same here at Mid-Ohio this afternoon? We'll just have to wait and see. So I think now that we're in this qualifying session, we'll take a look at the championship point standings. We are coming into the closing stages, this being round 10. Only have 2 rounds to go, my apologies, right after this afternoon. Jason Green, very similar to what he's doing in those Formula Fords, he's leading them in the S1 category and the Spec Racer Fords as well. Joao Tabino, off the back of a win last time out, he's in P number 2, and Evandro Dantes, another Brazilian, in P number 3. Jason Green at 739 points there, not very long ways off himself and Joao Tabino. Marco Pinero, who we were just talking about, it's still following. He is in P number 4, and Dudu Castro, another Brazilian, is in P number 5. Simon Mayer, Alice Pleva, Bobby West, Andre Favini, and Krisha Gabanka will round out your top 10 in the S1 category. And then we'll switch our attention over to the S2s as we see a cone massacre from a car in the back. A shot. Philip Berry is leading at their 470 points on the board. A bit more commanding, very similar to what we see in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, with a commanding lead in the S2 championship for the Aussie. Pedro Carvalho there in P number 2. Still a good season from him. He has a nice gap to himself and the Brit of Paul Jackson in P3. Wilson Barzarasco in the 444 car, he is in P number 4. Very fitting there. Paolo Brema is in 5th. The Italian in the 555 car in P number 5. Got some weird numberology or numerology going on in the S2 standings. Russell Tekler, Arnis Jurcevic, who won last time out, he in the S2 category, he is in 7th. Michelle Faglini in P number 8. Drew Simpkins there in P number 9. Chris Montgomery is going to round out your top 10 in the S2 category. And now moving on to your favorite category, Charles, that being the Masters.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Gradwell and Brad Cathcart still leading the group. Brad Cathcart in second, 10 points, still very tight at the top. Kurt Nunez is in third with 424. He's about 40 or so points behind. Jeff Richer is down in P4, another 30 points or so back. Jim Brewster in 5th place. York Monty in 6th. Marcus Burkett in 7th. Antonio Race in 8th. Chris Murakami and Adam Bradshaw round out your top 10. Still a really nice battle up at the top of the grid there. And so every point is going to matter for the next few races, and we'll see who comes out on top.
We're seeing the continued storyline there with York Monty and Antonio Reese in P6 and P7 in that Masters category. With the bad luck they've run into so far this season in both the Formula Fords and the Spec Racer Fords, they have been relegated down the running order. I will say Antonio Reese won in the Masters category last time out at Phoenix. He ended up that race in P8 overall, so it's quite fitting that he's currently P8 in the Masters category. We'll see if they can turn their fortune around in this race. We heard from York Monty towards the end of that Formula Ford broadcast that he's going to be starting this race here at Mid-Ohio in last, so that's going to give him a nice little challenge. I think he probably realizes, hey, at this point I am pretty much entirely out of championship contention. It's what, 140 points back or something like that for York Monty in P6. So he's going to be enjoying these final 2 races, and we've got some oddballs in terms of the tracks that we'll be visiting to round off this season. But as we've been talking about the championship standings, this qualifying session has still been going on, and Marco Pinero is still in P number 1 at a 132.417. He has a 1/10 of a second gap between himself and the driver in P number 2, that being a man who I've seen before on Apex Racing TV. First got acclimated to him in the name that at that point it was named the Radical Racing Challenge, now the Radical Esports Cup, the official Radical series that we broadcast every single Friday here on Apex Racing TV. Felix Samoa is the Portuguese driver in the number 31 car, pulling his way into the pits. So nice to see Felix back on track.
Mhm.
He is a very fast race car driver, has a 5600 I rating. He is fast, and he's fast in this qualifying session as well. We'll see if anyone can challenge the pole man, that being Panero.
Yeah, it is good to see Felix back. Haven't seen him this season. Was a standout. Was always battling in the spec racers up toward the front of the field for a few seasons. And it just he kind of was in the Marco Panero era of where Marco was just basically walking away from with all the races over the course of a couple of seasons. So it is good to see Felix back. Again, he is quite quick, and so no surprise he's up near the front. Couple of little notes as we talked about. You mentioned earlier, Jorg Monty was going to be starting from the back. He's not setting a pit time, so he's going to start. Looks like 39th of our 41. And Maurizio Naselli, who we normally see starting in the back, actually set a time, but his time is basically only 2 spots ahead of Jorg. So he'll be starting in the back as well, but he'll have a couple of lower rated guys that's going to be between him and Jorg. And so we'll see how that works out for Jorg. If he can get clear, it'll be a nice run with him and Naselli to watch them work their way up the field or work through the field and see where they end up. Naselli's going to obviously, it's kind of been feast or famine. He's either come up through the field twice, once before the pit stop, once after a pit stop, to end up, circling around the top 10, or he's been wrecked out. So we'll see how it all works out for him today.
Now, of course, it is allergy season here, at least here on the east coast of the U.S., and maybe some pollen's getting in my eyes. They're just deceiving me. Or with a checkered flag ad, Marco Panero and Dudu Castro are tied. It looks like there's nothing separating them. So there's a dead heat between Marco Panero and Dudu Castro. And we said this race was going to be close, and it's already close to the qualifying session.
Top 20 within a second of pole, and the top 2 guys are separated by less than 1,000th of a second. So it looks like as iRacing, I think it goes to about 8 decimal points. So it has determined that Panero was slightly faster than Castro, but those 2 cars starting on front is really not much of a surprise. And anytime those cars are anywhere close to each other on track, it's usually sparks flying. So we'll see how that works out today.
So yeah, according to our live timing screen, they're both locked at a 132.42. That's according to our drop-down live timing screen. According to the graphic, they're at a 132.417. But according to iRacing, they're separated by 1,000th of a second. It's still incredibly close. Like, that is absolutely absurd here in this qualifying session, getting flashbacks to the 1997 I guess it was the European Grand Prix back then, the final race of that season, which ended in very dramatic fashion and had a 3-way tie in that qualifying session. But man, incredibly close. That is going to be a dogfight between Panero and Castro in the 40-minute race that we have coming up here. Yeah, look at that. According to iRacing, again, separated by 1,000th, but still, they both have the purple right next to them, so they do. They're joint. We'll say that they both start from the pole. They're both honorary pole sitters in this race. Something happened in the IndyCar many moons ago, back in 1996, the first ever season of the Indy Racing League. They didn't have a tiebreaker for that season, so Scott Sharp and Buzz Calkins were declared co-IndyCar champions, which was the first time that ever happened in the history of IndyCar in many of its forms in the past, well over 100 years. So I think now that we're in the dying stages of this qualifying session, I think everyone just got yoinked back to the pits. I think we'll take a look at the starting grid from this packed Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors race, with nothing separating the front 2 there. 0.000 of a second separating our pole man Marco Panero and our honorary pole sitter Dudu Castro in second, Felix Samoas in third, Evandro Dantes in fourth, Jackson Resende in fifth, Joao Tabino in sixth, Josh Soto in seventh, Simon Mayer in eighth, Alice Pleva in ninth, Philip Berry, the Australian, in P number 10, the top of the Spec 2 drivers. In P number 11 is Christian Kabanka, in P12 is Antonio Reese, and we'll scroll down the rest of the grid here. I realize it's a short pace lap. We're gonna have to burn through this. Megan Overstreet in 13th, Jason Green in 14th, Chris Murakami in 15th, Tom Gradwell in 16th. Andre Favini in 17th, Jeff Fischer in 19th, Kurt Nunez in 19th, Chris Montgomery in P20.
Yeah, Pedro Carvalho in 21st, Josh Justice in 22nd, Jesus Rodriguez in 23rd, Brad Cathcart in 24th, Andrew Love in 25th, Flavio Andalo 26th, Paulo Brim 27th, Adam Bradshaw 28th, Alan McCain 29th, Jeff Jacobson 30th, Paul Jackson 31st, Jim Brewster in 32nd, Stephen Mitchell in 33rd, Josh Wilkie 34th, Russ Telker in 35th, Maurizio Naselli in 36th, and Wayne Buttermore 37th, and Michelle Viglini is the last last time P38. And then coming up from the back, Jorg Monty, Gianni Longan, and Bob Kern, and that rounds out your 41 car field.
We got through all of that before they even set off on this short and pace lap here at Mid-Ohio. I think round of applause. That probably didn't get picked up on the microphone. Thank you very much, Discord's noise suppression, for that. My lungs are screaming in pain after that. That was probably the first. That was the deepest breath I've ever had to take on one of these broadcasts. But I think while we still have a little bit of time before we grab the green flag, in a couple of moments' time, we should thank the wonderful sponsor that we've had for the second half of the series, a sponsor that's come along, part of the Ray Esports Racing League every single Tuesday night here on Apex Racing TV, that being the wonderful people over at Personal Wealth Solutions. Just like in racing, financial planning and investments require a team behind and experience as well. Personal Wealth Solutions creates a custom investment and financial planning strategies for select individuals and businesses as well. With over 25 years of experience, their goal is not to have you feel like a number, but make you feel like they're number one. If you'd like to learn more about financial planning run by racers serving racers, head on over to www.personalwealthsolutions.com. We'd like to thank Personal Wealth Solutions for being the proud partner of the Spec Racer Force, and the green flag is out, the drivers are on their way, and Marco Pinero with a very early jump. He's going to be leading them quite comfortably heading into turn number one. Challenging bend. We'll see if everyone can get through this clean. Felix Samoas has jumped his way into P number 2. Not an ideal start for our P3 starter of Duda Castro. He's already dropped down. However, he may go for a move heading into the keyhole here in just a couple of moments' time. Some drivers already shuffling for position. That Samoa is dropping back, so he was briefly in P number 2. However, Duda Castro, the man that tied for the pole, has slotted his way back into that runner-up position. Jeff Fischer in the middle of a hornet's nest right here, right towards the tail end of the top 20. I think it was going 3 wide heading through the keyhole. Chris Montgomery was one of the other cars involved in that as well. Pinero, Castro, and Samoas covered by barely any air, heading their way into China Beach, turn number 4 for the first time by. That is going to be a fantastic overtaking opportunity that these drivers are going to use. Then the section coming up with turns 5, 6, and there's China Beach and some drivers going off already. Paulo Brema is one of them in the 555 car. That's a disastrous start for him, as with Alan McCain, another car who had some damage a little bit farther up the running order. Jeff Jacobson involved as well. I think he was the one that picked up that major damage. He's going to pull over to the side of the track, and Jeff Jacobson, he was involved in an unfortunate incident towards the midway point of that Formula Ford race we had earlier on this afternoon, and yet again he is going to fall prey to some mischief right now in the early stages of this race. I will say we briefly got a shot of Nazelli. He has cut through the field like a hot knife through butter. Give us a Nazelli status report here, Charles.
Yeah, he's up 9 positions in the first lap, so he's already doing work and working his way up the field. He's already passed, like I said, 9 cars. And I did notice something. Jacobson obviously got caught up in the like 2 cars going into China Beach, 2 wide, just not enough room there. Maybe somebody checked up a little bit quicker than others expected, but McCain was involved in that, as you said, as well as Jacobson. And I noticed Flavio Andalo, who's had some good runs, did not have a good qualifying time, but disconnected just on the grid. So he just reconnected and basically started from the pits right as he got back in, just as the race started up. So he's back in the back in 38th. He's down 12 positions. He's going to have to do a little bit of work to get back up the field.
Oh, that is going to sting, but there's still a whole lot of time for these drivers to try and make their way back up the running order. We're following Avenger Dantes in P number 6. He's still involved in this hornet's nest of Spec Racer Fords at the very north end of the field. I'll tell you right now, the top 10 all S1 drivers, so a little bit of dominance, a very dominant performance of the drivers with a red ticker right next to their name. We'll see if that status quo will be shuffled between now and the end of this. Antonio Reese is is atop of the Masters, knocking on the door of that top 10 spot right now. And it's still incredibly close to top 20, separated by 6.5 seconds. Pedro Carvalho, the S2 driver, who's currently running P3 in that Spec 2 category. He is the last of this massive train. It's a never-ending train, as we saw Pinheiro and the rest of the drivers running up towards the north end of the field head their way through turn number 1. It looked like a Monty Python sketch, and it's again heading through turn number 1, about to head their way into the keyhole of turn number 2. I've said hornet's nest already. That's the only way I can describe that. These SRF cars just buzzing around the track in a massive pack.
It's the snake. Yeah, it's the draft snake, and that's what we're seeing right now. The first, and we'll just open this up, but the first gap that was more than a second was all the way down in P28, and that was Jim Brewster, who's dropped off a little bit behind Naselli. But now there's a little bit of a gap between Megan Overstreet and Phil Berry, about a second and a half. And as long as these cars up front, as long as they stay in line, that gap will extend. But as soon as there starts battling on track, we'll see that gap tighten back up.
We just saw some battling there. That was Felix Samoas and Resende trading blows as they went through the turn 4, 5, and 6 section there. We're going to see a whole lot of battling heading through that section once we go through the opening fast part of this lap. Once you get past turn number 4 there, one of the heaviest braking zones on this entire lap, there is a little to no time where you're keeping that steering wheel straight before we get back onto the start-finish straightaway that these drivers are doing right now. We're not even at lap 4. We're just starting lap 4 right now with Pinheiro still in the lead of the race. We've already seen a whole lot of stuff go on. We had an accident heading through turn number 4 and 5. I think we may be able to take a look at a replay soon, because that was a multi-car logjam pileup as they went through the wooded section near China Beach. That was not ideal, and actually, yeah, you can see a gap developing between Overstreet and Green, so they're spreading out a little bit. Still, the top 12 cars separated by 3.5 seconds. You love to see it hard battling here, heading through the keyhole. That's Jeff Frister involved. Kurt Nunez also trying to get a move done on Favini on the exit of the corner. That's a nice fight between himself, Nunez, and Rodriguez. And right farther up towards the front of this train, we have Jeff Frister going side by side with Montgomery. It is heading into turn number 4, trying to avoid China Beach on the outside. Don't go barrel rolling like Simon Pagenaud did last summer, and then you're going to be scot-free. There we go. That's a nice move from Jeff Frister to move his way into P at number 17. One thing that I always love about these Spec Racer Ford races is that regardless of whether these drivers are battling for the final podium positions, battling for the race win, battling for a top 5, or even outside the top 20, they are trading blows, racing each other hard, very hard, but also respectfully as well, and you'll love to see it.
You absolutely do, and it's not really that much of a surprise. We talked a little bit about the technical aspect of this course. It is a very difficult course, very tight. The corners are quite tricky once you get off of those draft fast lanes. Once you get past China Beach, as we see a car off, that's Stephen Mitchell and Russ Helker. A couple of the guys in the back of the grid, looks like they may have a little bit of contact. But once you get past China Beach, it becomes a very, very tight, difficult track to try and navigate. So the less experienced drivers that are in Spec 2 are going to have a little bit harder time just trying to get around this track than the guys that are the Spec 1 drivers, the more experienced, higher I-rated guys. So it's not really that much for surprise. I'm surprised there's not a lot more of the old wily veterans, the Masters guys up front. But as we talk about this, Naselli's up 10 spots in 26. Jordan Monty's up 10 spots in P29. So they are making the leapfrogs work, and they're working their way up the field. And we'll see how many spots they get before Naselli comes in. What I would assume is his normal tactic is come in for an early pit stop. And take the undercut and then start working his way back up through the field again.
Zelli and Samoas were back to trading blows a few moments ago. They went side by side and were battling quite hard, heading their way through turns 4 and 5. They nearly made contact before they went on the brakes heading into turn number 4. Samoas, as you said, Charles, he has experience in the series, as Adam Bradshaw, the Brit, has gone for a spin. I believe that's heading through, I think that's turn number 6 there. I believe that's exit of turn number 5. Actually, no, that may be a little bit farther down the road. That I think that was that's right before Thunder Valley there. So that
Hmm.
was coming around turn number 8 and spinning right before the entry of turn number 9. Either way, that is not ideal, and there's a little bit of damage on the front end of that race
Yep.
car as we see Wayne Buttermore going for a trip through the trip through the grass, I should say, going for some lawn mowing on the exit of turn number 11. Samoas and Resende are still battling hard, this time heading into the keyhole section. They're dragging each other down, and Resende with a big drift through the grass on the exit of the keyhole. Thankfully, he keeps it clean. However, he's going to drop back like a rock. Dabino had a fantastic run. He is going to blow Resende's doors off going down this back straightaway. They negotiate the kink of turn 3. They're going to be slamming on the brakes heading into turn number 4. Tabino in P number 4. Resende dropping back. Resende has been very aggressive so far in this race. He's playing it fast and loose with the drivers up towards the front of the field. However, if he plays it as fast and loose as he did, trying to make a move done on Samoa's heading through the keyhole that time by, he may drop back even more.
Yeah, for sure. As we see Kurt Nunez off, one of our Masters guys, just coming through China Beach and into turn 7. Just a little bit on the inside, maybe just took a little bit too much or too much speed through China Beach and end up in the grass. It's really easy to do there. And so he's back on the track, has a nice rejoin. It's nice and safe. As we see another car off, that's Rodriguez off on the right-hand side of the track. It's kind of a weird spot to be off the track through Thunder Valley there. So yeah, it's kind of strange, and he's worked his way back in line right in front of our buddy Jim Brewster, running 28th and 29th. As we see, Naselli is in, as well as Cathcart.
He had made his way through the field like a hot knife through butter, but again, Nazelli, we've seen this in the past. We saw this hearkening my attention all the way back to, I think it was New Hampshire on the Roval. He overtook about 40 cars during that race, and Nazelli coming in for an early stop. We're looking at Brad Cathcart in the number 905 car with a very close call there. A little bit of lawn mowing on the entry to the turn,
Ooh.
and oh, there's contact between himself and Nazelli. Did Cathcart actually make it into the box? I think he did, as I saw that damage on the front clip of that Spec Racer Ford get repaired with a fast repair that these drivers do have at their disposal, but a little bit of contact. That's surprising to me. I don't think we've seen pit road contact so far this season, but we just saw that trend buck there as they had a little bit of wheel banging as they came through the pit entry.
Yeah, that was a little strange because it looked like Naselli was over in the pit box lane, which should be ghosted. So that was kind of odd. Yeah, so just like I'm sorry, Cathcart came in, was in the kind of the fast lane. Naselli was on his inside, not really sure where each other's pit box was. Contact made. Luckily, the fast repair, they can get that sorted out. I think Naselli was up about 11 positions when he pitted, so we'll see what he does once he gets back out on track.
When we're looking at Kurt Nunez, he was locked steady in a nice fight between himself and the S1 driver of Rodriguez, Jesus Rodriguez, to be a bit more precise, in the number 76 car. He put together a quiet race in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors earlier on, and he's putting together a quiet race again as well, right behind our old buddy from Apex Racing TV, Josh Wilkie, running in P24. A nice result from him. I'm not going to mention any sort of luck or stuff that's happened so far this season, because I don't want to jinx him. He's had a very rocky season. We'll see if he can make it to the checkered flag. Pedro Carvalho may not. He's had big slide heading through the keyhole. Be careful on the rejoin, Pedro. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Oh, Jim Brewster. That had to have been inches separating Pedro Carvalho and Jim Brewster. Brewster, I don't think he'll need a change of tires after that, because I don't think he locked up or even slid. However, he may need a change of pants, because that was incredibly tense as they went through the keyhole.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you saw Carvalho has also got some front end damage. So I wonder if that was maybe a braking issue between him and another car, and he was off in the right hand side. As we're getting a replay here, no, already had the damage before that, and just took a little, just a little too much to the inside. Maybe had to check up for the car in front. I think that was Philip Berry. I think that was his paint, and then that rejoin was very, very close. So Jim lucky to sneak through there.
Oh man, that was I think I just I saw Jim Brewster's race and life flash before my eyes right there. That was okay. I think we'll move on from that and talk about some drivers coming down pit road. Chris Montgomery is in, along with Kurt Nunez right behind as well. So Kurt Nunez, those tires are probably screaming in pain after that spin he had heading through turn number 5 not very long ago. And we are in that pit window, 13 minutes in. Still have a heck of a lot of time left to go. Already drivers coming in for some interesting strategy calls, some nice racing here with Josh Soto in the '07 car. He is locked steady in an awesome fight between himself, Dantes, and Samoa. So Samoa is dropping back quite a lot. He was running briefly in P2. Now he's trying to make his way back into P at number 7. However, oh my God, that was a matter of inches separating himself from going off the track. That was huge for Samoa as he briefly was running in P2, dropped back like a rock, is now running in P number 7, and is going to face a challenge from Simon Mayer right behind in P number 8. The driver of the number 5 car has had a sneaky season so far. He picked up that one win a couple of weeks ago at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park with strategy playing a huge role in that, but Mayer, he is always running up towards the top 10. He is sneaky, he is clean, and he is militarily consistent. So Simon Mayer, the German driver of the number 5 car, running in P8. We'll have to see how it is between now and the end.
Yeah, for sure. It looked like Samoa's maybe got rooted out on that last lap coming through turn 2. Maybe got a little wide coming out of that corner, and lost lost his positions. Tried to fight back against Soto. Soto very smartly just kind of broke in his normal spot, maybe broke a little bit more and allowed Samoa to just run deep, and it was a nice little crossover move, able to hold on to that spot as we see a battle now for the lead, and that's Castro up to the front.
You do Castro. It looks like there's a little bit of damage on that spec racer Ford. That may slow him down, like he's dragging a parachute going down this back straightaway. However, something that's helping him out is the fact that Pinero and Tabino are going side by side going into turn number 5. It looks like Rosende's going to make it 3 wide. Bold stuff from Rosende and bold stuff from Josh Soto is going to try and go for 2 for 2 going around the outside of turn number 5. He gets a move done on Pinero. That's a terrible turn of pace and terrible turn of luck for Marco Pinero, the Italian, dropping back like a rock. But Soto with a very impressive and bold move to go for it around the outside, heading through turn number 4 on the wounded and definitely mentally bruised car of Marco Pinero. I think I see a little bit of damage on that race car, possibly on the side, but either way, Marco Pinero, he was buried mentally after going 3 wide down that back straightaway, and Marco Pinero just like, fine, you go for the move. There's still a whole lot of time left to go in this race. We're 15 and a half minutes in. We're not even at the halfway mark. We've seen a whole lot of shuffling, a whole lot of drivers leaping in front of each other, and finally we have a Masters driver inside the top 10, that being Antonio Reese, just barely inside the top 10 in P10. But you know, we're starting to see that intermingling between the S1 drivers, the S2 drivers, and the Masters continue here. I think by the end of it, with all the strategy that these drivers are going to try and go for, it is going to be all kinds of shuffled up by the end. As we see Antonio Reese, he's one of the last cars of that pack. And Charles, did we lose it here, Charles?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, you're back.
Anyway, no, I was saying that all the fighting up front has allowed those that top 12 to stay together. They're still all basically nose to tail, and Green is starting to make a little bit of headway. He's starting to make up a little bit of that gap as long as these guys up front keep fighting. That'll invite more and more drivers to try and make up the stagger, and we'll have a 13 car train up front here before you know it, as we got this next group of cars with Philip Berry and Gradwell, Favini, Justice are all just kind of sitting there waiting for something up front to happen, or waiting for a pit stop. Maybe we'll see some strategies play out during the pit cycle. See maybe somebody short fuels to try and make up a few seconds. And so we've still got another 23 minutes or so left in this race. And so we're not even close to being done. Speaking of,
There's a whole lot of time left to go as Resende has now come into the pit, so he's the first of the drivers running solidly inside the top 5 to come in for an early stop. 17 and a half minutes in, so the Brazilian coming in somewhat on the early end. Usually we see drivers stretch it out as far as 30 minutes, and oh, that's a big overshoot from Jackson Resende. That is going to hurt his pit time dramatically, so it may not seem like too much. He probably lost about a second, maybe a second and a half, possibly even 2, but still, that small little overshoot, it was a matter of feet that he overshot that box by. But with how close the drivers in the top 10 are, that small little loss of time in that pit cycle is going to hurt Jackson Resende really, really bad. Thankfully for him, he will be getting towed by Paul Jackson right in front in the 249 car, so it's not all doom and gloom for Jackson Resende, but the pit stops, just executing on track is probably the most important one. But when it comes to these races, executing in the pits is big as well.
yeah, absolutely. You can win or lose a race in the pits, and missing your box. Yeah, it doesn't cost that much time, but when we're talking about a 10 to 12 second stationary time, that 1 second will make a big difference, especially if it could be the matter of just not being able to hook on to the end of the back of the draft, and if you lose that, then you end up losing a half second a lap possibly, just from the cars in front.
There's a whole lot of stuff that's going to happen between now and the end of this, so it's certainly not over for Jackson Resende. He's still running in P24. This man, Joao Tabino, is still running up at the very north end of the field. He won last time out in Phoenix. It was well, I won't say it was an anticlimactic, so to speak, finish at the end of that Phoenix race 1 week ago, and it was Dudu Castro that came up just close of beating Tabino last time out. He, as I said, won in S1, won overall, and currently looking through the rest of the field. Once again, Antonio Reese leading in that Masters category. He ended that race in Phoenix P8 overall and P1 in that Masters. He's P9 right now and definitely has a good opportunity to cut his way through the field like a hot knife through butter. I will say the top 5 have broken away, so we've got a 5-car peloton forming at the very north end of the field. Tabino, Castro, Soto, Panero, and Samoas are those cars, and then they've got about a 1 second gap between Dantes and Samoas running a P5 and P6. There you can see the striking number 32 car there. I got the privilege to race against Evandro Dantas in the Phoenix officials that we had last week, and Evandro Dantas, a very fast driver, but he got all kinds of sideways there exiting turn number 6. Very lucky to keep it out of the barriers and keep all four tires, I should say, on the road. That was mega sideways, a big moment from Evandro Dantas. He is pushing like hell to try and close up that gap to the top 5, but I think those groups may be broken up permanently as we see Josh Justice going for some rally action. But switching our attention back, hopefully Josh Justice is safe here on the rejoin. He should be good. Justice, an SRF driver in real life, so he rejoins quite nicely. But getting back to the point that I mentioned there, do you think this pack that was huge up towards the front as Jeff Frischer has now come in from P13, do you think those two packs at the very north end of the field, Charles, have split permanently, or do you think they're going to rejoin soon?
No, I don't think that they've split permanently. I think as soon as the top 2 guys up there start battling again, Castro's only 4/10 back. So as soon as he decides he wants to be out front, as soon as they start going through corners side by side, all that gap goes away and it's back to that big 11 car pack again. So as we'll just keep an eye out here as we're looking at Josh Wilkie sitting behind Jeff Jacobson. And just nice pit stop coming in and overcooks the entry, loops the car around Josh. That's back to practice. we'll give him a little bit of grief there. Josh said that he didn't get as much practice as he would have liked to. He said he felt comfortable on the track, but maybe not so much on pit entry.
Well, I think in terms of the lack of practice that our buddy Josh Wilkie had for this race, I'll pin the blame partially on myself, considering we did 3 interviews at the end of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors broadcast that he was a part of earlier on this afternoon, so didn't get as much track time as he probably had in mind. So nice little spin, lost out on a decent amount of time. However, it's certainly not over for him. Christian Gabanka in, so he's one of the first drivers inside the top 10 to pull into the pits after Resende came in. So we'll see how Cabanca exits out compared to Resende. Resende was farther up the field, but Cabanca, it looks like he's not going to overshoot his box. So we're going to see how Cabanca exits out compared to Resende. I'm looking through. Resende in 19th, Cabanca dropping down the running order. Favini in as well. So Resende is going to jump ahead of Favini. It's going to be close between Resende and Cabanca. Resende actually jumps ahead. So Jackson Resende, even though he was a little bit slow in terms of how long he spent in the pits, he managed to jump ahead of Christian Cabanca. So Resende really on some flyers right now.
Yeah, I mean, we said he was slow, and he was only 7/10 of a second slower than Cabanca, but obviously has had some pretty good pace. Is able to make up. I know he's passed a few cars since he's been back out there, so he's obviously got really good pace, and it's showing on track. And so now it's a matter of, can Cabanca get up to Brewster and get a good draft and help pick up a couple of tenths, and maybe he can get to the back of Resende. At some point, Resende's going to hit a big pack of cars. It's going to become a little more difficult to pass, and that may help Cabanca out in the long run.
There's still just one thing about these SRF races. There's like a million things that can go right or wrong for a driver, and usually for even the winners of the race, there's something that doesn't exactly go their way. Megan Overstreet coming into the pits in the number 044 car, so she's going to be trundling her way down the pits here. We'll see how long she's stopped in her box. Another driver to stop from inside the top 10, so it could be a matter of when. Well, it's a matter of when, not if. As always, these drivers do have to come into the pits at some point. However, I feel like it's only a matter of a few laps before we see the drivers start to come down pit road at the very north end of the field. They have a lap car right in front of them. I'm not sure who that is in front of our race leader, Joao Tabino, and it's not a whole lot of time separating themselves and that lap car farther up the road.
Russ Helker, I think. Yeah, I think so. Yep, and that's a verification, and it was he's just a little bit off the pace, obviously. And I think he was in around an issue earlier as well, so it probably cost him some time. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of work. Just to go back to Overstreet, everybody else was around the 10-second range for their pit stoppage time. Hers 8.6, so she's short fueled again. It worked out for the Formula Ford race, and that will actually pop her into that lead group should she manage to run some good solid lap times. Obviously, she's got a couple of cars in front she's going to have to deal with. One of those being Andrew Love. The other one is Resende. She's out between Resende and Cabanca, so that may help Cabanca out as well. And she's got to just work her way through and get to the back of Resende, and she might be up there battling for a top 5.
Now we've got Antonio Reese, the leaders in the Masters category, coming in as well. So Chris Murakami, unless he comes in too, he is going to take the lead in that Masters class. There's Murakami. He stayed out, so the driver of the 901 car is going to take the lead in that class, but it's only a matter of when he comes into the pits as well. Megan Overstreet, as you said, short fills yet again. It worked out for in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors we saw earlier on this afternoon. Hopefully for her sake that she doesn't see the underside of Jorg Mani's car like she saw at the end of that race. And speaking of Jorg, he started the race towards a very tail end of the field. Didn't set a qualifying time and started way farther back, but he's currently running in P12 right now, up 27 positions from Jorg Mani. This is an incredible drive from the driver of the 925 car, and it can still improve from here.
Yep, he's still got the ability to move up a couple more spots. Obviously, he's clear of a lot of the cars in the back. Obviously, still has a pit stop to make. He'll run it till it's dry, probably, and so he'll just keep running hot laps until then. But he's got good pace. He's got leader's pace. He's 1:34.3 last lap, so he's definitely capable of getting a good result out of this. But he's going to have a really good pit stop in order to make that happen. And sometimes Jorg's pit stops are a little bit slower than most people because he doesn't really do a lot of fuel saving or short fueling. He wants to make sure that he's got enough to finish the race. So usually costs him a couple of seconds. So that he'll have to worry about as we see Samoas and Pleva in the pits now.
More front pack pitters. Samoa's the radical specialist. That's how I know him, and that's big contact between Duda Castro and Josh Soto heading into turn number 2. That was huge heading into that section. They're very lucky they didn't spear off into the tire barriers rounding that corner, but either way, that was a big moment. That's allowed Marco Panaro to slide by Duda Castro, and he may go for the move on Josh Soto heading into the corner. He's going to have the inside line, maybe making it 3 wide there with Duda Castro in the middle. Soto's going to be sliding and drifting his way around turn number 4. How the hell did he keep it on the racetrack? Oh, and another slide there. He made contact with Panaro heading through turn number 4. Soto, understandably so, backing out of that after 2 major moments in the span of about 15 seconds. Josh Soto saying, nope, I'm done. I'm backing out of this. See you later. See you in the pits. Speaking of, we may see these drivers come in soon. Tabino has that buffer if he wants to come in and do something different than these drivers. He now has a nearly 1 second gap between himself and Panaro. It shows you how hard battling can just increase that gap massively and act like these 3 drivers were dragging parachutes. And no, Tabino's going off. He keeps it at the tire barriers, but Joao Tabino, the Brazilian, that's close. That's contact with himself and Duda Castro when he comes into the pits. So Joao Tabino, who I just mentioned, was in a comfortable position. Right as I say that, he goes off coming through the carousel and makes contact with Duda Castro. So Duda Castro, 2 hip checks in the span of a single lap. Thankfully for his sakes, he's going to take that fast repair, fix that front end damage and some side damage that he has as well. There's a replay of all of that craziness. Marco Panaro, oh my God, this was looking like a stroke of luck for him, and it looked like a disaster moment for Duda Castro. He nearly went off the track along with, oh my God, that was, I am shocked that those 2 got away with that heavy contact on pit entry.
Yeah, I am too. Obviously, it looked like Castro's was planned. He was planning on coming in this lap. The other car, Tabino, maybe just thinking, I might want to do it now that I'm off in the grass. I might want to go ahead and pit. And obviously, 2 cars, same spot, pit entry. Obviously, as we saw earlier, not necessarily the easiest to navigate. Definitely is more difficult 2 wide as we see some battling up there. Looks like Overstreet on the inside of Resende. Is that right? It is. Side by side, still fighting.
Got Pleva and Kabanka right behind those 2, looking to pick up the pieces if they go off the track. Resende has probably been the most aggressive driver so far in this race. He's gone some balls to the wall, ballsy moves all throughout, and he's still trying to pull off some moves, running in P at 13 as things stand at the moment. Jason Green in 5th has come into the pits, so he's going to gain another position once Resende overtakes him in a few moments' time. But Jackson Resende came into the pits very, very early. I think it was just past the 10-minute mark when Resende came into the pits. So an early call, an early decision when it comes to that strategy for Resende. And we'll see how things shake out for him. Monty, Murakami, and Gradwell in as well. So a whole lot of shuffling. Resende now back up into P number 9 as Jason Green falls out of the top 10. So that was a pretty good strategy call, it must be said, from Resende. It's working out for him nicely. However, Megan Overstreet is not making it easy for the Brazilian. She's going to try and go around the outside, heading into the keyhole. This is bold stuff from Megan Overstreet. Not close enough to get the move done. She's going to try and consolidate her exit here and have a great run on that back straightaway. That's going to be close between those 2. Going for the old switcheroo is Megan Overstreet, nearly making contact bumper to bumper as it came out of the keyhole, heading through the kink of turn number 3. It's going to be a battle last lake breakers between these 2. Overstreet on the outside, and it's going to be close between those 2. I think Resende got on the brakes a little bit later, but he locked up heading into the corner, and now Overstreet is still side by side trying to stick it around the outside, heading through 5. Resende giving her no brakes at all, and then Megan Overstreet barely sliding her way back into P10. Pleva looks to try and pick up the pieces. After that, Marco Panaro, the leader of the race, has come in along with Josh Soto, so that is going to give the lead of the race to the German of Meyer. He won the race at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park with an incredibly late pit stop, and with how dramatic this race has been so far, that late pit stop strategy may be able to help him out again.
Yeah, it absolutely may be, as we see Samos. It looks like we've still got Mayer and Dantas still out on track. Panaro, Soto coming in. Obviously, Soto, good jump coming out of there. He's going to be a big battle with those two, and obviously Soto's kind of aware now of the aggression level of those guys that are running up front. So this race is not over by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be chaos basically for the last 8 minutes or so of this race.
Well, I'll tell you whose chances are over. Tabino and Castro, they're running in P7 and P8 as things stand currently. With only a few cars between only a few cars left in the top 10 that have yet to come down pit road. That is looking like a terrible run from Tabino and Castro. They made that contact. They started this race from the pole. We're tied in terms of their lap time. But sadly, things have gone all sorts of wrong for both of those drivers. Rosende sticking it around the outside, heading into turn number 4. Gets a move on Megan Overstreet, who is still running in P number 10. And up towards the very north end of the field, it's Simon Mayer and Avenger Dantas, who have still stayed out on track. We'll see what they can do here, as Megan Overstreet looked like she was going to try and go for a move. And Avenger Dantas, right as I talk about him, Dantas off again. So another driver looking to go into the pits has gone off, heading to the carousel. Mayer has stayed out. I wonder if someone dropped a banana peel on the carousel, because that's like 5 cars we've seen spin off in very similar fashion.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it's the pit entry, is everybody's trying to take that outside line through the carousel to line themselves up for pit entry. And it just seems like it's a little slippery out there. And we saw several of the front runners have issues just getting into the pits. I gave Josh grief for that earlier, but now it seems like he was just one of many.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I kept my mouth shut is because I'd quite like to be able to not annoy our producer, who's going to be our producer for the Ray Esports Racing League broadcast this upcoming Tuesday here on Apex Racing TV. Panero in P number 2, so he is still the leader of this train. Soto is right behind. If things shake out as it looks like they will, this is going to be a dogfight between Marco Panero, Josh Soto, and Felix Samoez, the driver of the 16, 07, and 31 car, covered by barely any air as they go through turns 4, 5, careening their way into turn number 6. This track is absolutely wonderful, fairly unchanged from how it was back in the very early days, back well before I was born. So we're seeing some old school racing at this old school racetrack, and it's going to be an old school fight between now and the end of this. Simon Mayer has now finally come into the pits, coming up to only 5.5 minutes left to go here. So the driver of the number 5 car finally takes that plunge to go into the pits. We'll see how he exits out here. I have a good feeling he may be able to exit out solidly inside the top 10. That would be a master stroke from Simon Mayer. Oh, he overshoots a box a teeny tiny bit. That is not going to help out his chances. He's not going to have a shot at the win, though, as Marco Panero, Josh Soto, and Felix Samoez are going to inherit those top 5 positions. They just started lap 23. They're in the final 5 minutes of the race. And ooh, Soto with a low bit of rally action on the outside of turn number 1. Keeps it on the island as Simon Mayer exits out. He is stuck in a hornet's nest. He's going to be met with Rosende and Overstreet, who are still battling. Overstreet is being held up a little tiny bit from Simon Mayer. It looked like Overstreet was going to try and go for the move on Rosende into turn number 2. However, with that exiting car of Mayer, she just didn't have the space to do so. This is going to be a tense fight here, right towards the tail end of the top 10 and up towards the front. That is going to be chaotic.
Yeah, for sure. It's the top 3, and then you've got Tabino is kind of alone. It makes you wonder if Castro's got anything that maybe can get up there, as we see Rosende and Overstreet still swapping positions. Overstreet still trying that inside line going into China Beach, and Rosende is doing a really good job of just pinching her down into the apex and not giving her room to run out. And able to hold on to the spot again this lap. So she's going to have to come up with a different strategy and figure out a different way of getting around him. She's obviously seems like she's faster, or feels like she is anyway. So it's going to come up with something a little different. And Mayer, obviously, with his, even though he had a little backup, solidly in the top 10 in P8 and in the battle here for potentially, maybe a top 5. You never know what's going to happen up front.
Now, one thing to keep in mind with this fight between Rosende, Overstreet, and Mayer is that Overstreet, she had, an 8.2 second pit stop, so it was very short for Megan Overstreet. She definitely short-filled and has probably been trying to save fuel ever since then. So maybe that's a reason why she can't pull off the move. Speaking of pulling off the move, Samoa is down the inside of Soto, heading into the keyhole of turn number 2. They're going to be very close on corner exit. I think Samoa's cleared him just barely, but with those two battling, Panero is going to try and pull away, and he's going to need a pretty big gap as they overtake Wayne Buttermore in a few moments' time. Overstreet has gone past Resende, but they're still going to be side by side. Mayer is going to try and give Overstreet the bump, and up towards the front of the field, Samoa is trying to sweep around the outside to take the lead of the race from Panero. It's going to be very close to the boundaries of the racetrack. Panero now stuck on the outside. Samoa is on the inside. A little bit of contact as they go through turn number 5, and they're still going to be side by side heading into 6th. Panero on the inside. Samoa is on the outside. Soto looking to pick up the pieces if they come to blows, and now Soto looking to get past Samoa is here, and now he's trying to go for the double as they go into turn number 9. And that's Simon Mayer with the spin. That's heading through turn number 6, I believe, or turn number 7. It could be one of those corners. Either way, Simon Mayer, who is running solidly inside the top 10, is out of it. He's donezo in that fight. So with those two in P6 and P7, it's going to be a straight-up dogfight between Resende and Overstreet. They both pitted early. They both took less fuel than their competitors. So that is going to be a very interesting fight in the final 2 minutes of this race.
Yeah, and we see a little bit of lap traffic in front of this lead group. That's going to make things a little interesting. I think that's Buttermore. It is, and so he's just in front of the leaders, and so it's going to make things tough, especially if you're trying to go too wide into the keyhole. Just not enough room there. Buttermore, nice job to just kind of get out of the way, and you see Soto getting a good launch out of the corner. And getting some good run. It's kind of blocked off a little bit by Paneros, but they're going to continue fighting. We're going to go 3 wide going down into China Beach.
That was very aggressive defending from Panero. He nearly put Soto into the cones as Samoa is looking to try and get the move done around the outside, heading into turn number 4. Try and keep it out of China Beach, try and keep it on the island, and Felix Samoa is maybe done. He may be able to get the move done, and yes, he does, heading through turn number 5. Felix Samoa's on what could be the last lap of this race. I think they will be taking a white flag this time by. It's going to be very close either way. Felix Samoa's is going to be leading them heading into Thunder Valley for what may be the last time. There's only 45 seconds left on the clock. I think it's going to be very, very close. Jörg Mani in a nice fight between himself and Chris Murakami. They come to blows exiting turn number 5. The drivers that are running in P2 and P3 in the Masters category, they go for a big slide heading through the grass. Felix Samoa's is going to be exiting turn number 13. He's not going to be taking the checkered, though. He is going to be taking the white. That is not what Felix Samoa's want to see in any way, shape, or form. He wished that was a checkered. Otherwise, he won't have to deal with the assault that he's going to have to deal with heading into turn number 4. At the end of this race, Antonio Reese has come in from the lead of the Masters category. Why has Antonio Reese come into the pits? That's going to give up the lead to Chris Murakami, who we just saw have that front clip pop off his Spec Racer Ford. Murakami's in as well, so I think that may give it to Gradwell. Tom Gradwell in the 909 car takes the lead in the Masters category on the last lap of the race. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Felix Samoa is weaving his way down that back straightaway, trying desperately to break that slipstream. Right behind him, Soto and Tabino are close. Those two are battling. Meanwhile, these two are battling as well. Panero around the outside. He clears him going into the braking zone, but he locks up and sends himself into China Beach. Felix Samoa holds off the challenge from the number 16 driver of Marco Panero. That is a huge mistake from one of the best drivers in this Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warrior Series. He is out of that fight. I think Tabino is too far back to make a challenge unless Felix Samoa makes some kind of cataclysmic mistake in the dying stages of this final lap of this race. It's going to be Felix Samoa taking the checkered flag, but still anything can happen. We've seen a whole lot of drivers slide their way through the carousel through turn number 12. He has 2 more corners left to go. Felix Samoa is a driver who I remember most from the Radical SR10 series here on Apex Racing TV. He's a fast driver. Resende dropping back. Resende with some major issue, a slowdown possibly, but Felix Samoa is a one capitalizing on a mistake for Panero. He ends up winning it here at Mid-Ohio. Felix Samoa with a fantastic drive takes the checkered flag. Tabino in P2, Soto in P3, and we think that Jackson Resende, I'm listening carefully, that motor is not at full song. I think it's entirely off. Resende running out of gas. Did Megan Overstreet run out of gas? No, she didn't. Megan Overstreet. Oh, and that's big contact with Gradwell and Monty. Was that Monty? No, it wasn't. It was Monty. Monty took the win in the Masters category with that contact between Rodriguez and Gradwell. Oh my God, that was, I didn't even know what I was seeing as they came to the checkered flag, as Chris Murakami coming in yet again. Not sure why Chris Murakami is pitting for the third time in this race. Jeff Fisher coming in as well. I wonder if these drivers were just way too close on fuel, and that could be the reason why they came into the pits. That would explain Antonio Reese's very, very late stop in this race. Wow, Charles, the fight for the win, that was intense. Samoas ended up with an 8/10 lead over himself and Joao Tabino, who, if there's one more lap in that race, he may have been the challenger to win this race over Samoas. Who knows? They didn't have an extra lap. They had only 27 laps at their disposal, and it was Samoas taking the win. But then that Masters finish, Gradwell, he is going to be livid with Jesus Rodriguez for that contact heading around the final corner. Oh, we're taking a look. There's contact before, so I think that may have been Gradwell using up Rodriguez heading into the corner. And then Rodriguez, fisticuffs breaking out. It's a NASCAR-esque finish here at Mid-Ohio at the Spec Racer Fords. We're gonna have to take a look at another angle to see how exactly Gradwell may have gave the bumper to Jesus Rodriguez as it went around the carousel. But then Rodriguez, it looked like he returned the favor there heading through turn number 13. That was messy. I think that's the only way you could put it. Oh, that was big contact.
Yeah, it was big contact. It looked like Gradwell I don't know if maybe Rodriguez slowed up just a little bit too much. But yeah, it definitely looked like that Rodriguez says, I want that spot. But Gradwell obviously in a battle with Monty there at the end of the race for the Masters class win. So not necessarily, probably not what Gradwell wanted, and probably was not even thinking about trying to root Rodriguez out of the way. So that's kind of a bad way of finish, and I'm just kind of shocked. We end up with a tie for the pole. I thought we were going to end up having a tie for the win, but just some weird things happening on the last lap. Felix Samoas takes the win.
Here are the results. Samoas, as you said, Charles, winning it in a very dramatic finish between himself and Marco Pinero. Running at the podium was Joao Tabino, who I thought was entirely out of it. He put on a mighty recovery to end up in P2 when they took the checkered flag. And Josh Soto, he broke his elbows out throughout that race. He ends up as a final podium finisher in P number 3. Marco Pinero, the Italian, in 4th. He is going to be kicking himself after that lockup heading into turn number 4 on the last lap of the race. If he broke maybe 10 meters earlier, it would have been his. Dudu Castro ends up that race in 5th. Megan Overstreet, fantastic race from her. She ends up in 6th. Christian Gabanka in 7th. Jason Green in 8th. Alice Pleva in 9th. Avenger Dantes round out your top 10. Maurizio Nazelli, who we didn't really talk about throughout that race, ends up in P11. That was a fantastic race from the German in the number 44 car. Andre Favini, the Swedish driver, ends up in P number 12. Jesus Rodriguez, with that being and banging and roughing each other up between himself and Tom Gradwell, he ends up in 13th. Then a dramatic turn of fortune, pace, whatever you want to call it, Jörg Monty, who put on a mighty recovery drive, started the race towards the back, ends up in P14 and wins in the Masters category. We didn't mention the word luck, which could be the reason why he ended up there. Tom Gradwell, in a heartbreaking finish, he ends up in 15th. Brad Cathcart in 16th. Top of the S2 drivers is Chris Montgomery in P17. Pedro Carvalho right behind him, P18. Kurt Nunez in 19th. And then Jim Brewster is going to round out your top 20.
Yeah, in 21st is Philip Berry, Josh Wilkie 22nd, Josh Justice 23rd, Flavio Andalo in 24th, Paul Jackson 25th, Jackson Resende with a late race fuel issue 26th, Johnny Long in 27th, Paolo Brim 28th, Adam Bradshaw 29th, Andrew Love in 30th, Stephen Mitchell in 31st, Chris Murakami in 32nd, Jeff Richer in 33rd, Antonio Race in 34th, Simon Mayer in 35th, Wayne Buttermore 36th, Jeff Jacobson in 37th, Russ Telker in 38th, Michelle Vaglini in 39th, Alan McCain in 40th with the early race wreck, and Bob Kern did not take the start and rounds out our 41 car field. And just a note on Naselli, 34 cars passed during the race.
almighty recoveries from all of these drivers. Nazelli, as you said, up a shot. That is an unbelievable result from him. Nazelli ended up 25 spots up from his starting spot. Yurgamani up 24. He definitely made a lot more passes, though, after coming into the pits. Our race winner, Felix Samoas, was up 2. Joao Tabino up 4, along with our final podium finisher, that being Josh Soto. A whole lot of drivers cut their way through the field like a hot knife through butter, and Megan Overstreet was one of them. She made up 7 spots between the start and the finish, and I think she is waiting in the interview waiting area. So, Charles, would you like to have a chat with Megan Overstreet?
Yeah, let's talk with Megan. Megan, P6 overall, but a nice gain. Looked like you had some really good battles there late race with Jackson Resende. So talk about it from your viewpoint.
Oh, that was a blast. I got one heck of a workout in that race. But yeah, it was fun. We were battling so hard for that position. At first, I thought he still hadn't pitted, so I was like, oh, geez, why is he battling so hard? Then after a while, I finally realized, oh, this is for position. No wonder why he's battling so hard. Hopefully it looked good from the outside, though.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing to watch. It was he was up running toward the front. You guys just basically checked out, had like a nice 12-car train going there for the first half of the race. And he was battling up to the front, but he had a little issue. That was the aggression level up front was insane. So he decided he was going to come in and pit, and then you made your pit stop, and you guys just kind of ended up together on track. And yeah, it was great fun to watch.
I told myself I should have pitted about 3 laps sooner than I did, because I was like, man, we are just going so slow in this 12-car train. It'd probably be smart. I might be able to actually jump ahead of folks, and it mostly worked out for the most part, because I was able to go from 12th to 6th, so I'll take that.
There you go. So, hey, you had one of the shortest pit stops of anybody up to the front. How much fuel did you have left at the end of the race?
I had 0.1 gallons of fuel left. It was tight there at the end, but I wasn't letting out.
Yeah. So, in other words, perfectly estimated. So, hey, I do have a question for you, and this is off the sim track. So now that you have your SCCA license, so what are you looking at driving coming up in real life? Anything available to do?
Yeah, so I'm hoping the first of my 3 races that I got to do for the SCCA novice permit, I'm hoping to do in August at Waterford Hills, since that was the place where I did my driving school.
Well, cool.
And I should be in a B-Spec Mini Cooper.
There you go. So that'll be fantastic, and congratulations on getting that prize and making the most of it. So congrats for you that, and we'll. I know you have a work schedule that doesn't allow you to be out here a lot anymore, but it's always good to see you on track, and we'll see you the next time you get a chance to be here.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Megan Overstreet, who, despite that very tense finish with the fuel, is probably a bit more comfortable. The fact she didn't see some aerial acrobatics right in front of her. So I think I'll bring in our winner from tonight, that being Felix Samoas, to have a quick little chat. Felix, congratulations on the win. It's been a long time since we've had a chat, probably since a Radical Racing Challenge quite a few seasons ago. So how was it out here tonight with the Spec Racer Fords?
Oh, thank you. It was fun. It was good to be back to the Weekend Warriors. And I, not that I will be doing the Weekend Warriors every time, but I really like this combo at this track, and I knew I had very good pace during the normal season races. So I had free time, so let's have a go. I wasn't expecting to win, but it all turned out well. I got a bit lucky because I just found out that it was unfortunate for Dudu and well, if I'm not mistaken, or Jackson, that they had an off track before going to the pits, which meant they lost a lot of time there. And then Panero Marco had that he overcooked braking for China Beach, and then that ended up making my victory kind of easy.
Yeah, it made your job a bit easier on that last lap, and just talk us through it, going side by side, down that back straightaway, heading your way into turn number 4. Was it a game of chicken as to who was going to get on the brakes last, or just talk us through that fight, because it looked
Exactly.
very, very tense from our end.
Well, yeah, it was exactly like that. So I tried a few laps earlier, as you guys saw with Soto and Panero. On the outside, so at one point I was in front, but then at the end of the lap I was again on third, and then on the lap that I passed Marco, so I tried again on the back straight, braking for turn number 4, and I managed to stay in front after the next corner, the corner after, sorry. And then the last one, I was in front, so I swerved a bit to try to break the toe. It was a bit pointless in the end. So then I stayed on the inside, and I braked as late as I dare. And I saw Marco braking so much late. I'm like, it's impossible that you're gonna make the corner. And yeah, sure enough, he went straight into the sand, which was unfortunate, but not for me. I ended up winning.
Hey, you gotta take the wins when they come, Felix Samoas.
Exactly.
It would be nice to see you back out here with the Spec Race Rewards, because I'll tell you what, the battle that you were embroiled in from start to finish was absolutely incredible to watch. Felix Samoas, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, as always, to the community, everybody on the Spec Racer community and at Weekend Warriors and on Discord, everybody, a bunch of good people, always fun to be here. And also for Stevie for continuing putting up, organizing the series, and everybody at Apex Racing TV for the commentary. It's always fun to watch. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Felix. Congratulations on the win. Hope to see you back out on track in 1 week's time.
Okay, see you later.
And that was Felix Samoas, who ends up taking the win here tonight. Charles, who do you like to have a chat with?
Well, let's talk with our P3 runner Josh Soto, because I want to get his take on it. Josh, congrats on the P3 overall. And so I know that you come in and run both the weekends as well as the Tuesdays occasionally. And it looked like the aggression level up at the front of the field was turned up to 11 today.
Oh yeah, yeah, just trying to get like some passes done. Unfortunately, like sometimes it didn't work as intended. But yeah, it was just just try to get up to the front, and because it started in P7, and but yeah, overall ended up with a pretty decent result. I think at the end there, I ended up picking up a cone, which slowed down my engine a little bit.
Yeah, well, did not see the cone, but yeah, so it was, you like I said, you were up 4 positions from your start. So you were up at that front group, and it was like 12-car train, I think, for the first half of the race, and still until we started getting some pit stops. But yeah, it was some good battling up there with you and Tabino and Samoas at the end, as well as Panero and Castro and our normal group up there. So what did you think about the quality of the action?
Oh yeah, it's great action. They're really talented drivers. Like everybody in the top, everybody in this league is really good, but especially in the top 10, like really strategic drivers, and it was a blast racing with these guys.
Well, cool. Is there anybody that you want to thank or give a shout out to?
Yeah, I would like to shout out to all the league people that are in charge of the league, Stevie Ray, and also I would like to shout out Apex Racing for the amazing broadcast, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you, Josh, for that. We appreciate it, and congratulations on your podium.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And that was Josh Soto, who ends up this race embroiled in a nice fight, and we are running a little bit long, but I figured this would be a barrel of laughs. Let's bring in our buddy Josh Wilkie to have a small little chat. We've got 2 commentators and 2 broadcasters in here. Something is bound to go funny. Josh, usually we don't hear your voice on these broadcasts, but you're at there on track. We're not going to mention that spin on pit entry because I would quite like to have my voice go out to people this upcoming Tuesday on the Ray Esports Racing League. And also, you weren't alone in that. So was it really challenging heading your way through turn number 12?
Yeah, absolutely. Long-time listener, first-time caller here. It's good to see you guys. Yeah, the pit entrance was a bit challenging, not gonna lie to you. I sort of charged it a bit and had a spin. It's really too bad because I was doing all right. I made a couple passes on merit and saw a couple people kind of to the side with some attrition there and so on, and then had the spin, unfortunately. But it's just good to finish, good to be out there with these guys and finish a race for once. So yeah, I'm pretty positive about it.
Yeah, I will say overall, you made the checkered flag. It was a fairly clean race from your perspective, so not a whole lot to be upset with. Now, next time out, it's going to be at Winton Down Under. So how do you think that race is going to be in a week's time?
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea. I've never raced that track. I just kind of poked my nose into it a couple weeks ago just to be like, hey, I wonder what this is. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty challenging one too. So every week, getting used to a new setup with this car, kind of my first season with it, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what I can do. Looking forward to Watkins because I got a little bit more experience around there.
I think likewise, Winton, I still can't make heads or tails of that track, so Watkins Glen in a few weeks' time. If I were to run in this series, that'd probably be the one I would run in. So, Josh, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth and having your voice be broadcasted out to all the people watching the stream here on Apex Racing TV. Anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Just my girl and, my friends and everything here, and obviously you guys, always sounding great every weekend in Samuli for doing some great producing and stuff. And that's it. And the guys out there racing clean and everything, super fun. Glad to be around.
Alrighty, well, Josh, congratulations on seeing the checkered flag.
Thanks,
I will
guys.
hear from you this upcoming Tuesday for the Ray Esports Racing League about a half an hour before that broadcast goes live.
You know it, buddy. Have a good one.
Alrighty, that was Josh Wilkie, our old buddy Josh Wilkie, joining us in the commentary booth. Have a quick little chat after that race. Winton in a week's time. I'm not really sure what to expect from that race. Again, as I just said with our buddy Josh, I can't make heads or tails of that track. So, Charles, what's your experience driving around that track, and what do you think that's going to be like in a week's time?
Zero experience driving around that track. But, we'll do the homework this week and get ready for it, as the drivers will. The drivers always get out there, and if they don't necessarily run an official race, they'll at least get out for practice. And at least get some laps in before they don't come in cold. So it's going to be fun. It'll be an interesting race, as it always is, because we have a really good group of drivers, and they're going to put on a show for us as they did today, and they'll do week in and week out. And we'll give a shout out to Stevie Ray, who's not here today for some strange reason. Maybe he's out somewhere doing something on a real track. Either way, though, we'll see him, I'm sure, again next week as well.
And we may see him this upcoming Tuesday from the Ray Esports Racing League, the second to last round of that season. That is going to be intense. Also at this track as well, that being Mid-Ohio, that'll be a great race. In a couple of days' time, Winton. That's going to be interesting. From the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors, Long Beach for the Formula Fords. We got a whole lot of action day in and day out, week in and week out here on Apex Racing TV. Hey, it gives you more of a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well, so you never miss a single thing. But as for this broadcast here this afternoon, I think that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mons, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Samuli Kuma doing a great job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all again in 1 week's time.